Okay, so the first step is you get some soybeans, and hopefully once you get serious about them, you can buy them, like you can order like a 25-pound bag, but at first you might want to find a store that will sell them in bulk. And so for a full recipe, I use 2 cups of soybeans, and you want to soak them overnight. Now, in a pinch, I've put them in hot water and let them soak just for a few hours, but ideally you soak them overnight. Like any beans, they'll fluff up quite a bit, so I'm gonna fill this bowl 3/4 full. Okay, so I've filled it full of water, and you can already see there's some bubbles. That's going to be, soybeans can get foamy, so I'll talk about what to do about that. But that's the first introduction to foaminess of soybeans. Okay, now the beans have soaked overnight, and the next step is to rinse them. There's no magic here, but I try to get them really well rinsed so they lose that kind of beany smell and flavor. So, colander or whatever, and I just do it several times. So that's steps. Pretty easy. I'll probably do that a couple of times. Okay, so the next step is you need to puree it, and I have a Vitamix, which is really good for that job. I used to do it with a little tiny food processor, and that worked, but I had to do it over and over again. But however you do it, the ratio is 2 cups of water to every cup of beans. So I've put 6 cups of water in here, and I'll put 2 cups of beans. And I'll do that. I think it's usually like 2.5 times will take care of all the beans I've soaked. Okay, so to puree it, you just turn it on high until there are no bits left. What you end up with is smooth and foamy. Let's see. I'll pour it into this pan. And this, actually it's not yet soy milk. It needs to be cooked before it's officially soy milk. But we will end up with soy milk along the way. Okay, that's just the first batch. There will be more, and so I'll do that until I'm done. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is boil it for 9 minutes, and that is actually hard to do because it burns easily and sticks on the bottom of pans, and so you have to, like, if you just cook it over a stovetop, you have to sit there and stir and stir and stir the whole time, and it's still easy for it to stick. So then I thought, I can make it in a pressure cooker, because that will, it won't stick. It won't be extra hot on the bottom. And that worked fine, but there was a problem, which was when it started to heat up, it would foam up and it would get all gucked in the lid and stuff. And then I realized that I can take the foam off before I cook it, and it behaves itself. And then I got this skimmer tool, which makes this job really easy. So I just skim off as much foam as I can and put it in the worm bin or wherever. And then what I'll do is I'll set it to pressure cook for 9 minutes. I used to bring it to temperature like on slow cook and then take more foam off, but I found I don't really need to. As long as I'm pretty thorough about taking the foam off, this does the job. So I'll get this off, I'll set it to pressure cook for 9 minutes, and then let it release on its own, so it'll be a lot more than 9 minutes before it's done, but then I'll come back and do the next step. Okay, so there's a couple of things I can be doing while I'm waiting for the soy milk to cook. And one is to put together the press. So I have this press that I bought online, and it's just this wooden box with holes in it so that moisture can drain out. This is this funky old pan I bought at a I don't know, flea market type of thing one time. It works really well to catch the moisture that's going to be squeezed out of the tofu. And then there's the cloth. Okay, so this is all standard, you know, all these things came together. But then the one thing that in recent times we've gotten to make it even better is, this is a little funny, we've used this thing that's made for a cheese press, because you need to weight it down to help the water get out. And we've used, you know, just like a heavy can of tomatoes or whatever. But it's hard to get it to sit nicely, and so then we discovered this, and it works really well. I'm just getting this set up. When it's ready to fill, you'll see the rest of it. But that's one thing you can do while you're waiting. Another, I'm going to pause this video. Another thing you can do is get ready for draining the soy milk. So what's going to happen is once it's done cooking, you'll have this hot liquid with the grains of the soybeans in it. So you need to filter that, and it's only the grains you'll throw away, and then the milk is what you'll use to make the tofu from. So for a long time we just squeezed it through a nut bag, and that works fine, but it's actually a little hard to do because the stuff is pretty hot when you work with it. And then we found this is actually for making jam, or jelly rather, and it works really nicely. So I'll show you how to use it, but I'm just going ahead and getting that set up. And then the final thing I can do is get the coagulant ready. So tofu has 3 ingredients. One is water, one is soybeans, and the third is a coagulant. And there are there's 3 main ones, but several different coagulants, and they create slightly different textures and flavors of tofu. I've used, I think, all 3 of the main ones, and I can't say that I fully appreciate the difference, but what I'm using now is gypsum salts. And this stuff you can, you know, if you Google, maybe search for tofu coagulant, it's easy to find, and you can order it. I'm just going to put the powder in a jar because it needs to be warm when I mix it in, so I'll put the warm water in later. Okay, so now the soy milk is done, and I'm going to pour it into the strainer. And this frame thing, I didn't mention that one of the important things it does is make this a one-person job. You can imagine if it weren't being held, I would have to have somebody help me. Use a spatula to get this out. There's some sort of stuck in the bottom, but importantly not burnt. As I mentioned, it's hard to cook it without burning it. Okay, so the other thing you need is gloves. These are not the greatest. I haven't found the perfect solution for this, but these are like for barbecuing, and they're heat sensitive. I'm gonna rinse them off. And squeeze. And so what's in here in the bowl is now soy milk. It's regular old soy milk. I mean, I think what you buy at the store might be sweetened or flavored. but it starts with this, so that could be an end product, or you can continue and turn it into tofu. And then there's a question of whether or not you can use the remnant bits for anything. I put it in the worm bin, so I feel like it gets reused, but I think you can find recipes that use it, but it's kind of a filler thing. It's not necessarily a desirable product. This is not very interesting to watch, but so once I get this strained, I will pour it back into the pressure cooker, and then I need to bring it up to temperature. It needs to be at 181 degrees, and then I'll add the coagulant. Okay, so I've poured all of the still quite warm, even hot liquid soy milk into the pressure cooker. And then what I need to do is bring it up to 181 degrees. And obviously you can do anything, you can use anything that will take temperature, but I've got this nice thing here which will, I can set the temperature and that I want it at, and it will alarm when it's gotten there. Let's see, right now it looks like it's at 126. I'm gonna stir it a little bit to be sure that's right. Yeah, and then and I need to push this up. I'm gonna put it on saute so it'll cook, and then I'll watch the temperature change. And when it's at 181, or a little before it gets there, I'll put warm water in the coagulant, and when it's at 181, it'll be ready to have the warm water added. Okay, so the timer went off, so now I'm going to put the coagulant in, and my one innovation here is that I found this tool. I'm not sure what it's called, but it spreads the coagulant nicely. Because that's the idea. I'm going to stir it gently, and then I just want to leave it. I'm going to turn the temperature off. I don't want it to keep heating. I mean, the heat off. And I'll just leave it for a while, and we'll come back and see it when it's coagulated. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, now that the coagulant has done its work, there's a lot of liquid in there, and we want to get the solids mostly into the tofu press and get rid of the liquids. And to be honest, this part is always variable, but sometimes at its best, when it's well coagulated, I can start by using a ladle and just getting a lot of the liquid that way. It's not obvious to me if it's going to work this time. There we go. And I'll have to admit, this part can take some patience. I'm going to show you a bit of this, and then I'll not bore you with it. I don't like that milkiness. It makes me think it didn't fully coagulate. I like it best when the liquid is quite clear, like this is. You can see bits of soy milk in it, or of curdled bits. Mostly, yeah. Shouldn't be quite that milky. Might need a little more time. I'm going to give it a little more time. Okay, I've waited a little longer. It's still not ideal, but it's clear that plenty of the tofu is coagulated. So I'm going to do a bunch of this, and then I'll start the camera again when I'm ready to use the other tool. Okay, So I've gotten a lot of the liquid out. Now I'm going to use this tool to get most of the curds out and put them in the tofu press. So when I first did this, I would mostly pull the curds out without getting a lot of the liquid out, and it's doable, but it's tedious. So this is far easier. And right now this part is being quite good. It's quite thick. Sometimes there are much smaller pieces and this is a harder job. So I'm going to keep doing that, and then I'll turn the camera back on when I have the press filled up. I'll show you, this is the liquid I'd already gotten out with the ladle, and I found that it's now not very milky. It has continued to coagulate, so I think I was still a little early. So I'm going to try to get more of these curds. Don't want to waste that. Add them to the press. This is, as you can see, a lot runnier. And the press is getting pretty full. So I think I'm going to do this wouldn't be necessary with a bigger press, but I'm gonna push it down a little bit. So this will be my chance to show you how to do that. So first I fold over, and there's no magic to this that I know of. I just do my best to fold this over to keep the curds in. Maybe I should do the side ones first. I think I changed my mind each time which should go first. And I already have quite a bit of liquid in here, so I'll drain that out in a minute, but then I put the lid on, and I'm going to just push it by hand first. That'll give me a little more space. So I'm going to do that a couple of times, and then I'll show you how I put the cheese press part on. Okay, so I got quite a bit more in, but squeezed it down to make room. So now I'm going to add the press. Get it all tucked up in here. And this little piece of wood sits here. This is something we introduced. And then oh no, sorry, that goes, wait, how does that go? Yeah. Yeah, well, that's right. Okay, so that needs to go way down. Okay. Then push it. What we need to do is get it, because I should have started it all over again. There we go. So, as you can see, now it's under pressure, and I can actually turn this handle to continue to squeeze it. So I'll monitor this over the next. I think it takes at least 4 hours. And the more you squeeze, the harder the tofu is, the firmer the tofu is, rather. Then we did find, if you really want to get it perfect, at some point, I don't know, after several hours, to actually take it out and flip it over and then squeeze it from the top. So I'll show you when it's done. Okay, so it's been about 5 hours, so now I can release it. And actually, the easiest way is slide these off. Nice block. I did end up flipping it way through. And voila, it's pretty firm tofu. So I find this whole process very satisfying. I've had at least one person say, oh, that was an awful lot of work when I could just go buy it for relatively little money. But I love that there's no packaging involved other than the minimal packaging that bulk soybeans come from. And, I think it tastes better. It's fresher. So that's how you make tofu. And here's the dish that tofu made, tofu scramble.